There comes a moment in every man's inner journey when he realizes he has walked deeper into himself than he ever thought he could survive. And it usually happens after the storms finally quiet down, after the heartbreak, after the sleepless nights, after the emotional collapse that forced him to confront the parts of himself he spent years avoiding. One day he sits in silence and notices something unfamiliar in his body. The panic no longer controls him the same way. The chaos has lost its grip. The tightness in his chest has softened. And beneath the exhaustion, something deeper begins to rise. Not pride, not ego, not triumph. Wisdom. The quiet strength of a man returning from the underworld, transformed. Because a man does not become a warrior through muscle, discipline, money, or external success alone. He becomes a warrior the moment he turns inward and faces what he spent decades running from. Most men never do this. They distract themselves endlessly. More work, more noise, more stimulation, more relationships. Anything to avoid sitting alone with the wounds beneath the surface. But eventually, life corners a man into himself. Through betrayal, through heartbreak, through emotional exhaustion, through the collapse of identities that no longer align with the man he is becoming. And that collapse becomes sacred because it forces him into the underworld. The underworld is not mythology. It is psychological reality. It is the inner realm every man carries within himself. The place where grief waits unprocessed, where childhood pain hides beneath emotional armor, where shame, fear, rage, abandonment, insecurity, and unresolved memories continue shaping behavior unconsciously. Most men avoid this place because entering it feels like death. But the death is not physical. It is the death of illusion, the death of performance, the death of the false self built around fear. And this is why so few men truly transform, because transformation demands confrontation, and a man cannot heal what he refuses to face. The returning warrior understands this because he lived it. At first, he thought the battle was external. He blamed the relationship, the betrayal, the circumstances, the past, the people who hurt him. But eventually he realized the real battle was internal. The dragon was not his ex, not his parents, not the world. The dragon was the fear inside himself. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of intimacy, fear of being fully seen, fear of losing control. Every myth speaks of a dragon guarding treasure, but the dragon is never truly outside the man. The dragon is the wounded identity, protecting old survival patterns. And this is why the path feels brutal, because the warrior must face every part of himself he once tried to escape. He confronts the abandoned child within him, the boy who learned to suppress emotion to survive, the boy who believed love had to be earned through performance, the boy who became hypervigilant around emotional inconsistency, the boy who carried shame he never deserved. And for the first time, the man stops running from that child internally. He listens, he feels, he grieves. He allows the pain to surface instead of burying it deeper. This changes everything, because healing begins the moment honesty replaces avoidance. The returning warrior understands something most men never realize. Strength without self-awareness becomes destruction. A man who suppresses fear becomes controlled by anxiety unconsciously. A man who suppresses anger becomes passive-aggressive. A man who suppresses grief becomes emotionally numb. But a man who faces his darkness consciously becomes integrated. This is why the warrior no longer fears his emotions. He no longer sees vulnerability as weakness. He understands emotional discipline is not suppression. It is self-leadership. It is the ability to feel the storm without becoming the storm. It is the ability to pause before reaction, to breathe before speaking, to observe before choosing. And through this process, something remarkable begins happening inside him. The nervous system changes. The chaos that once felt addictive no longer attracts him. Emotional instability no longer feels exciting. Trauma bonds no longer feel like love. His body begins recognizing peace differently because safety now feels more attractive than intensity. This is one of the clearest signs the warrior is returning transformed. Before the underworld, he chased constantly. Validation, attention, approval, relationships, emotional certainty. He tried to rescue people, fix people, prove his worth through loyalty and sacrifice. But after healing, he understands something deeper. What is truly meant for him will not require self-abandonment. So now he chooses differently. He chooses relationships that protect his peace instead of destroying it. He chooses honesty over performance, emotional safety over emotional addiction, alignment over attachment. And this is why the returning warrior becomes difficult to manipulate. A man who no longer needs external validation cannot be controlled through approval. A man who trusts his intuition cannot be controlled through confusion. A man who has faced abandonment internally no longer fears walking away from what dishonors him. This is where sovereignty begins emerging naturally, not through domination over others, but through mastery over self. And once the inner world changes, the outer world begins reorganizing around the new identity. Old relationships fall away. Toxic patterns dissolve. Intuition sharpens. Purpose becomes clearer. Emotional clarity becomes more consistent. This is not magic. It is alignment. Life reorganizes around the level of consciousness a man embodies consistently. The returning warrior is no longer operating from wounds trying to survive. He is operating from awareness, trying to build. And because of that, his entire energy changes. People feel it immediately, even if they cannot explain it. His presence becomes calmer, more grounded, more intentional. He speaks differently now, slower, clearer, more deliberate. He no longer over-explains himself to earn understanding. He no longer reacts impulsively to every emotional disturbance around him, because there is no longer a war happening inside him. Before the underworld, his mind was fragmented. One part seeking love, another fearing intimacy. One part craving connection, another expecting abandonment. One part trying to lead, another trapped in childhood fear. That fragmentation created chaos, and that chaos shaped every relationship in his life. But now something extraordinary has happened. The fractured pieces have begun integrating. The wounded boy no longer runs the kingdom. The shadow no longer sabotages unconsciously. The nervous system no longer treats every emotional trigger like a survival threat. The returning warrior is no longer divided against himself. He is unified. And this is why his confidence feels different now. It is no longer performance, it is recognition. Recognition of who he truly is beneath fear, conditioning, survival patterns, and emotional fragmentation. The world may simply see discipline, calmness, maturity, or self-control, but internally he knows the deeper truth. What they are seeing is integration. The warrior did not become powerful by conquering the world. He became powerful by reconciling himself. And perhaps the most important realization arrives quietly after enough healing. The underworld was never there to destroy him. It was there to return him to himself. Every heartbreak, every collapse, every sleepless night, every confrontation with fear, every painful truth, all of it was guiding him toward wholeness, sovereignty, and the emergence of the man he was always capable of becoming. This is why the returning warrior no longer regrets the fire he walked through. The fire purified him. It stripped away illusion. It revealed false identities. It forced emotional honesty. It transformed survival into wisdom. And now life feels different. Not perfect, but aligned. He no longer chases peace externally, because peace now exists inside him. He no longer seeks identity through relationships, because he knows who he is without them. He no longer fears solitude, because solitude became the place where he found himself again. And most importantly, He no longer feels at war with himself. The battle has ended. The man survived the underworld, not unchanged, transformed. And this transformation marks the beginning of the next stage of masculine evolution, the emergence of the king archetype. The warrior returns from the underworld not to prove he is stronger than everyone else, but to live with greater responsibility, clarity, compassion, and discipline. He leads himself before attempting to lead others. He protects his peace without becoming cold. He loves deeply without abandoning identity. He walks with humility because he knows what it cost to become whole. So, if you are walking through heartbreak, emotional rebuilding, shadow work, nervous system healing, isolation, or the painful silence that comes after losing who you thought you were, understand this clearly. You're not falling apart. You're descending into the underworld so you can return transformed. Trust the silence. Trust the confrontation. Trust the rebuilding beneath the surface. One day you will look back and realize the pain was never there to destroy you. It was preparing the warrior within you to return home to himself. And if this message resonated with you, subscribe. This channel is for men rebuilding themselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually through grounded masculinity, Jungian psychology, nervous system healing, shadow integration, emotional discipline, self-mastery, and sovereign living. And comment below, what part of your inner battle changed you forever? Chop wood, carry water, and let's keep the fire burning.